I want to help you get started on tonight's homework. You were given the roster client. Client could have been called roster tester, roster driver. It's where the main is. And so a roster is what a teacher calls her list of students. So it's a list of students. We make lists so far in Java with arrays. So our roster will be a list of students. So private student array, and the AP exam would probably call it something like my list. Okay, and we stop right there. That's what a roster is. Now, what is a student? A student is a name like Brent Smith and a grade level like 10. So private, my name, and private int my grade. All right. How do we make these? We make these with constructors. We see the very first line of the code using the roster class's default constructor. Then later, towards the very end of the program, we make a roster a second way. Again, the first way is with the default constructor. I know it's default constructor because it has empty parentheses. The second way is with a constructor that gets, well, what is A1 down here? A1 is a student array. So two constructors in the roster class. The default constructor okay. I don't know what it's going to do. I'll just leave it blank for now. And public roster that gets a student array. I'll be consistent over here. I'll use my list there. I'll use a list here. Okay. So this one's called the initialization constructor. Because it initializes my list to the parameter list. Okay. Okay. We also see a need for an add method in the roster class, right? R1 is a roster. We use R1 to access this add method. So an add method. Now R1 starts off, I guess, with nothing, and we add to it Brent Smith, a sophomore, and Kevin Wang, a senior. So an add method, I don't see it returning anything, so it's going to be void, looks like. Just called add. And now what does the add method get? It gets a student object, an anonymous student object. We could have made like student X equals new student Brent Smith 10 and passed it X. Again, we could have done student X equals new student Brent Smith, and then passed it X. It would be very similar. Okay, very similar. But we didn't do that. We sent an anonymous object instead. All right, so it gets a student. We'll say students do. And so it's going to add on to the end of my list this new student. So we have to have that in there. And what else? Let's see, anything else? Oh, we're going to display out.println R1. Okay. And did I show you what the output looks like? Let me see. I think I did. In this document here, so I display R1 this first time. It just shows that one student, Brent Smith. Then I add Kevin Wang and display R1, and now it shows Brent Smith and Kevin Wang. Then I make another bunch of students here and put them into an array of type student. And I finally display that, and you can see it displays them all on separate lines. Okay, so we'll need to have a toString method. This tells me, and this tells me, and this tells me I need to have a toString method. Okay. So we're going to make a string and return it. So string s and return it. Okay, and that's all the parts. Okay, I didn't put the equal sign there. My list equals list. Okay, so roster is going to just complete the instantiation of my list. So we'll say my list equals new student, and we don't know what size to give it, so seems odd, I know, but give it size 0 for now. Okay. I'd like you to take a stab at the add method, which we did, I believe, in the word list class. It'll look just like that. And take a stab at the toString method. Now, the only thing else you need over in the student class, what do we need? A constructor that gets a string and an int, right? So public student, I'll put name, comma, grade. Need to complete that. And then I think it'll help if you have a toString method over here as well. Public string, oops, public string, toString. Okay. So there's a big start for us for the first night of roster and student and roster client. Okay, so take this, complete the student constructor and the student toString method, and then for roster, try and complete the add method and the toString method. All right, thanks for watching.